I want to talk to you guys about why I think there's a massive opportunity that lies ahead of us where we can multiply our wealth by getting exposure to Bitcoin and Bitcoin proxies like MicroStrategy, the popular Bitcoin treasury company, also known as Strategy now. And I'm going to talk you through my entire investing thesis and why I think we might be a decade away from a similar opportunity presenting itself. Yes, a decade away. So if you miss this, you may have to wait as long as 10 years is my personal projection, which is why I want to make you aware of recent price action and why it's so relevant in Bitcoin. We had a massive breakout that not a lot of people are talking about. You know, the retail investor interest is a strong sign of when markets are ready to top, and we're nowhere near previous highs. You can use simple tools like Google Trends to analyze that. So I still think we're very early. I think we have a massive price appreciation ahead of us for Bitcoin, and that'll trickle down to the proxies like MicroStrategy. I'm gonna focus on those two things in this video. And I just wanna make it clear that, guys, even if you are not an investor, guess what? If you trade your time for money at a 9 to 5 and then you keep your money in a bank account, that's a choice. That's an investment, believe it or not, because that means you're gonna get the yield that your bank pays you, okay? And every day that yield is less than the inflation rate of US dollars, you're losing purchasing power. This is why you need to protect your purchasing power by moving your dollars into assets that appreciate and at least at a minimum keep pace with inflation. To me, my personal inflation metric is the price of the S&P 500. So there's ETFs you can just move your money into, like the SPY ETF. It'll track the S&P, it'll pay you a dividend, and your purchasing power should be protected. That's easy mode. My goal with this video is to help you generate alpha. That is to outperform the baseline gains of the S&P. And I think exposure to Bitcoin is the perfect way of doing that. Whether you buy spot Bitcoin and self-custody it, or invest in companies like MicroStrategy. So the plan is to talk you through my investment thesis so that you completely understand it. Hopefully you get excited about increasing your exposure, and then perhaps maybe even send this video to friends or family that you think might benefit from watching it. So let's get right into it. So my name's Ryan Hogue, and I believe there could be a chance to create generational wealth from the opportunity that lies in front of us. Of course, there is a lot of nuance to that statement, because there's different ways to get exposure. There's simply buying and holding Bitcoin, which is honestly probably the easiest way to create generational wealth of my lifetime. But I know most people want more than that. So you can buy the proxies, buy shares in those companies like MicroStrategy. You can do things like option strategies where you sell calls or sell puts. You could do things like, I don't know, use margin, right? You can do options, right? You could go long via call options. There's so many things you can do. And then when we reach the top, that's not the end. From there, you could sell calls against your underlying position. You could sell your shares and then go short via put options, which honestly is probably where the most money will be made if I had to guess, because, well, if you time it correctly, those puts are going to be dirt cheap relative to the premiums on the calls. And you could theoretically even sell calls against your underlying shares, roll that profit into puts. Anyways, guys, I'm getting ahead of myself, but can you tell I'm excited? What we have in front of us, I just need to get it off my chest because I can't feel like the only person that sees it. Now, like I said, this presentation is not technical. I mean, it'll be a little technical, but I'm not going to show you a bunch of charts and do technical analysis yet. That's going to be at the end. And I'll even put timestamps on this YouTube video so that you can find your way around easily and rewatch any segment that you think might be valuable to see again. Also, I'd recommend saving this video, which you can do using the controls underneath the video player on YouTube, so that you can easily find your way back to it in the future, whether you want to watch it again or share it with friends and family. Before we proceed, quick disclaimer. This video is for informational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute financial advice, investment, or trading advice. I'm a YouTuber, not a financial advisor. Thank you for letting me get that out the way. Let me introduce myself to you really quickly. 15-second introduction. I used to be a web developer. I used to teach web development, and I used to have my own web development company. I used to make good money on a relative basis, but I would never get rich doing that. So then I evolved from working that 9 to 5 and having my own side hustle to basically being a full-time e-commerce entrepreneur focused exclusively on making passive income. I did this through creating multiple income streams, mainly by selling on Amazon through Amazon FBA. I also sold through another mechanism called print on demand, where I sold on Amazon, Etsy, eBay, and Walmart primarily. I had a YouTube channel where I shared my success stories and did tutorials. It's pretty popular, almost at 200,000 subscribers. And ultimately, this got me featured on MSN, CNBC, and I've done live speaking engagements at South by Southwest. So I have a whole nother life outside of the investment YouTube channel, which you guys probably know me for. But I will say the reason I share this is, number one, to get to know me a little bit. Number two, that it is a lot easier to make good, sound investment decisions when you have good cash flow coming in. If I was talking to my theoretical younger brother who doesn't really exist, or let's just say younger sister, I have a sister, even though I don't think she'll ever ask me for advice on money, but it's okay, theoretically. I would tell her, focus more on making money before you worry about investing money. That would be my honest to God, best advice, which is a crazy thing to say at the beginning of a really long investment themed video, but there you have it. So I've got my investing YouTube channel that we're currently watching, where I did things like call the stock market bottom in April, the day after it happened, using purely technical analysis. Now, I love this video that I dropped. It's only 2 minutes long. I'll put it in the YouTube cards right here in case you guys want to check it out. It only has 100 views. Crazy. But anybody who saw it back then made a lot of money. And my goal is to make you even more money. But today we're focused exclusively on Bitcoin and MSTR. I just wanted to shout myself out there though. And I love this chart. This is the SPX. Okay, this is the stock market as we know it, basically. When most people say the stock market, they're talking about this. I have zoomed in on just one little piece of the chart. Right here was the tariff sell-off. That green line actually is a trend line that extends all the way back to the Great Depression market top. If you extend that trend line out to the .com top and you extend it out further, guess what? You get the tariff sell-off right there. Now, the reason I share this is twofold. Number one, because it's weird that we call it the tariff sell-off, yet we're also rubbing up against a 96-year-old overhead resistance, right? Sometimes I just share this because I don't really know the answer. And I feel like we live in the matrix. Honestly, I don't know. These algorithms, the market maker algorithms that are responsible for price action, absolutely blow my mind. And I'm going to shut up soon because I said no technical analysis till later. But I also wanted to show you guys that look at that weekly candle. We are now above, cleanly above, a 96-year-old stock market trend line. We have officially entered a new paradigm represented by that green candle bar. Just wanted to share that because to me that means, hey, we are entering an acceleration of the debasement of our currency because we denominate things in US dollars, and growth, I promise you, is not solely responsible for the appreciation in the US denominated value of the stock market. Hopefully that made sense. We're going to talk more about it. All right, let's shift on over to crypto. This is a list of the largest assets by market cap. You see, number one, we have gold with $22.8 trillion in market cap. Number two is Nvidia, okay? And by the way, it's just worth noting, gold at 22.8 trillion. What is gold really? I mean, yeah, it has some uses in like a business sense and a technical sense, but primarily it's just being used to speculate as a store of value because, well, people and governments around the world and corporations understand that fiat currencies are like ticking time bombs that get debased constantly. That's the one thing you can count on. So gold at number one makes sense. Nvidia, a US company, is at number two with a $4.16 trillion market cap. Tells you something about where we're at and where we're going with AI. Number three, Microsoft, 3.7 trillion. Number four, Apple, 3.19 trillion. Number five, Amazon, 2.4 trillion. Number six, Bitcoin, interesting, 2.35 trillion. And I know Bitcoin and Amazon have been kind of fighting for that number five spot. The reason I share this is for perspective, guys. If you made it this far in this video and you don't really want to recognize Bitcoin as, I don't know, like what it is essentially, which it is a lot of things. I can't come up with a single word or phrase to fully encapsulate what Bitcoin means because I know it means so many different things to different people depending on how deep down the rabbit hole you've gone. But at a minimum, as an asset class, it has a $2.35 trillion market cap. It's here to stay. Okay, and we'll talk about potentially why that is, but I also don't want this video to get hijacked and become a Bitcoin educational video. Plus, there's many YouTubers out there that can do a better job talking about it than I can. Okay, but I did also set the expectation. I want this to be a long video. I want to give this the reverence it deserves. And understanding Bitcoin is something that like you could that's a gift you could give to yourself. This is not going to be the video that does it, but I'll scratch the surface at least and hopefully get you interested. So now if we drill down into just cryptocurrencies by market cap, Bitcoin currently, as I record this, is trading at $118,500 and has a market cap again of $2.35 trillion. The next closest cryptocurrency is Ethereum, and its market cap is 430 billion. Okay, so a pretty staggering discrepancy between Bitcoin at number 1 and Ethereum at number 2. Also, can I just please interject here, personal, and again, not financial advice, none of this is, but like, I'm a huge fan of having exposure to blue chip everything, right? I think of Bitcoin as like the blue chip crypto and the rest of cryptocurrencies as essentially not the blue chips, right? The same way that if we go back up to the assets by market cap, pretty much every company on here would be considered a blue chip stock. And if you had like X amount of dollars to invest, why would you not get exposure to the companies that are responsible for carrying most of the weight of the S&P 500 or, you know, the whole stock market basically in general? You know what I mean? There's no benefit to speculating on smaller market cap companies. That's like speculating on what we call ship coins. I didn't curse. All right. I'm trying to keep it clean here. Anyways, the rest of these cryptocurrencies, they all have their speculative usages. If my thesis in this video that I share about investing is correct, and we see a large move that's already began, by the way, in Bitcoin, well, the rest tend to follow. So you'll see appreciation in these other cryptos, but you'll also start to hear like accompanying narratives about what role they're going to play in the future financial system and stuff like that. And it literally happens every cycle. At the end of the day, man, these algorithms that I believe it's mainly algorithms that are responsible for pricing assets, meaning stocks and cryptocurrencies, once they've been financialized, once they reach a certain threshold by market cap and they essentially become financialized, like you see the same boom bust patterns. I don't think this cycle is going to be any different. Just want to be on the record. Let me quickly talk about Bitcoin, not crypto. So Bitcoin is different from every other cryptocurrency in existence for a few reasons. And not every one of these bullet points is true about Bitcoin and therefore not true about everything else. Just want to be clear. It's not mutually exclusive other than one thing, and that is proof of work. Bitcoin is proof of work. As far as I know, every other Bitcoin is proof of stake. If there are other proof of work blockchains out there and cryptocurrencies associated, they're nowhere near, like not even remotely close, like exponentially not even as close in terms of the strength of the network, like the Bitcoin network and the Bitcoin miners that essentially are responsible for the Bitcoin hash rate that support the Bitcoin network that allow us to do things like send Bitcoin to each other and much more. You know, you can do a lot more. Again, it's a deep rabbit hole. I'm not saying I'm anywhere near the bottom either in my understanding, but I read the Bitcoin white paper back in like 2014 and I still am willing to say, hey, I have a lot more to learn about Bitcoin. Anyways, Bitcoin has a fixed supply. There's 21 million. No more than that will ever exist. And the founder of Bitcoin, if you will, the guy who created it, Satoshi Nakamoto, who is also a pseudonym, like no one really knows the true identity of Satoshi, has 1 million of the 21 million. So basically there's 20 million Bitcoin that will ever exist. And there's again, it's another rabbit hole, but there's a pretty strong reason to think that Satoshi is no longer with us. Might have passed away in the past. So those coins will most likely never move. It's a decentralized public ledger. You know, so kind of like how USD has like private banking networks. No one really knows who's in charge of what. No one knows how many US dollars exist. You can essentially like move them around with impunity if you're in those, banker circles, those central banking circles. You can do more than that too. You can set the interest rates, etc. A lot of things happen behind the scenes, right? With the current financial system. Bitcoin, it's a decentralized public ledger. Like you can see every Bitcoin transaction going back to the Genesis block. So it's not like there's no secrets basically. Bitcoin has no CEO. So if they decided to outlaw it tomorrow, there's nobody that's going to go get arrested and put in jail for being the founder of Bitcoin. It's a permissionless bearer asset. So you're not going to get like your bank account shut down because you didn't hold the right political views with Bitcoin. You'll always be able to have a Bitcoin wallet, transact, etc. And it's a bearer asset. I guess I'm blocking the last two bullets here. Let me move myself. It's a bearer asset. So you can own it yourself with no trust involved and no counterparty risk. It's insane. You just need to memorize your seed phrase basically. Each Bitcoin wallet has a seed phrase associated with it. And it's a great hedge against fiat currency debasement. And we will talk more about that. And I'll also try to speed up just in case I'm going slow. But I do like to talk about this stuff. There's a good book called Hijacking Bitcoin, by the way. Bitcoin is a lot of things and had the potential to also be other things that I don't think it will be. I think it's safe to say, for instance. So there's this book, Hijacking Bitcoin, that I read. And basically talks about the potential Bitcoin had to truly challenge state-controlled money. You can actually see right here in that sentence, a free market alternative to state-controlled money, because it promised to be that liberating technology. However, the Bitcoin core devs basically stood in the way. They definitely seem a little bit compromised, whether it's self-serving or they might actually be compromised. I don't know, right? I'm on the outside looking in. I am a mere normal human just like you. Essentially, it's like it's good and bad because, well, okay, so Bitcoin's not going to be the free market alternative to state-controlled money that it could have been. But what it basically is now in its current state is number go up technology, the ultimate hedge against fiat debasement. And I know I'm covering up that bullet point, but that's essentially the outcome of this book by Roger Ver, is that, you know, it is just number go up technology. It's digital gold, is my personal take. That being said, the easiest way to get exposure to Bitcoin and truly create life-changing wealth, which it's pretty much done for anybody that's followed the piece of advice that I'm about to give, is to open an account on an exchange where you can buy Bitcoin, set an automated buy at regular intervals, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, it doesn't matter, and just let it buy Bitcoin. Let it, I call it the alchemist stone. Let it transmute your fake, worthless US dollars into the hardest, most sound money known to mankind, which is Bitcoin. Okay? And then watch what happens to Bitcoin as it's denominated in USD. Over time, it's only ever gone up. Or you could say US dollars have gone down. You could say both. But you could keep it simple. Open a Coinbase account and dollar cost average into Bitcoin. Nobody who's ever done this has regretted it as of me recording this video, which is an insane thing to say. Okay. And I will put my link to Coinbase if you want to support this channel and this video as a thank you. If you don't have a Coinbase account, just use the affiliate link and we'll both get some free Bitcoin. Also, you don't have to do this, but you could and you should move your Bitcoin off of Coinbase at regular intervals. Even if it's just once a year, I would probably do it more frequently, but you could move it to a hardware wallet and self-custody your Bitcoin. Now, the actual physical hardware is not it's not an actual physical wallet. It's not really how it works. It's just an additional way of securing the Bitcoin. Leaving it on Coinbase is, for a number of reasons, not a best practice. So I just wanted to make sure I was clear that I fully support buying it on Coinbase. I would recommend just dollar cost average, let it just run in the background so you don't have to think about it and remember to do it. Then move it off at regular intervals to a device like a Ledger, okay? And I'll put a link in the description if you would like to purchase a Ledger device for your crypto. Now, Ledger supports more than just Bitcoin, so you can move more than just Bitcoin to your Ledger. You know, they used to just support Bitcoin, I'm pretty sure, and then they kind of expanded it. But the Ledger Live software is also very user-friendly. So again, it's an affiliate link if you want to support the channel. I'll put that down there. But I, have used Ledgers before, so I also endorse it from my personal experience. So let's get to it. This is the real reason that most of us are here. We want to get rich. We're still thinking in terms of US dollars. So if we all had to give our personal definition of what it is to be wealthy, we would denominate our net worth in USD, and that's probably how we would decide if we were wealthy or not, right? If we had to express our goals, it would be in USD. It is what it is. At least a few people watching this video probably think in Bitcoin though. Bitcoin currently is trading at $118,500 as of recording this. From inception, it used to trade at pennies per Bitcoin. It's actually grown as a power law as denominated in US dollars, and it has much further to go. The whole thesis behind me spending my time to make this video has a lot to do with technical analysis, honestly, which is not very clearly expressed in this picture, but I did just want to show you that it's absolutely insane. Show me a similar chart for an asset that grew this fast, this staggeringly, as quickly as Bitcoin did. Okay, and I believe that I'm not even going to say that we're on the cusp. We actually just broke out and crossed a very significant threshold that's going to be clear when I get to the portion of this video where I pull up the charts. And even if that's not your thing, I'm going to draw from my 7.5 years experience teaching web development at my alma mater at a university. And I'm going to try to pull from those 7.5 years and do a good job showing you technical analysis, because I know that's not most people's things, so that you see what I see, because it's significant to say the least. Why is Bitcoin going up? Well, we already talked about it, but well, if we denominate it in a fiat currency like US dollars, well, look at the purchasing power of US dollars since inception. It's basically the inverse of Bitcoin's chart. It has lost an absolutely staggering amount of purchasing power. So if you were holding dollars in a bank account or in cash, you're getting absolutely crushed. You know, back in the day, if you had $100,000, you were extremely wealthy, right? It all depends on, you know, where we're looking on this axis here with time. But you essentially needed to buy assets, gold, stocks, real estate, you know, and after the advent of crypto now, a new player has entered the game. And I have a, you know, thesis on why crypto exists, or at least, you know, if you don't think things are random, which I tend to think the higher the stakes, the less random things get. So I actually think crypto has a role to play, and I can express that later. But the US dollar is being inflated away, the purchasing power. So if you didn't know, there is many reasons to own crypto, this being just one of them. Interestingly enough, Bitcoin's price appreciation tends to follow a cyclical pattern. They call this the 4-year cycle, where around about now, as of when I'm recording this video in July of a post-halving year, you tend to see a rapid repricing, or should I say price appreciation of Bitcoin. Now, this is not my like personal technical thesis for why I'm so bullish on Bitcoin, but it is just another feather in the cap, as I like to say. Another reason we should think there is a lot of runway ahead for Bitcoin's price to appreciate, even at $118,500. You know what I mean? It's funny that like some people aren't seeing it. You know, they think that we could be topping right now, and it would be so silly if that happened. It would be such a deviation from historical trends. This just being one instance right here that you're seeing on the screen, but there's a lot more that I have to show you in the charts. Also, shout out to the Rational Root on Twitter, by the way. I always like to give people credit for their chart. Also, Colin Talks Crypto, shout out to him on Twitter. You can see Bitcoin tends to follow the global M2 money supply. And it's funny because it's like if we deviate, and by the way, there's an offset. So you can see over here, different offsets, like the M2 money supply leads, then you have to basically put it at an offset in order to get kind of Bitcoin aligned with the trajectory. So it's not an exact science, but from a macro perspective, if you're not just trying to day trade, okay, and you can just kind of transmute your USD into Bitcoin, or, you know, get exposure to the Bitcoin proxies like MicroStrategy, and then just sit back and relax, watch what happens. There's this crazy phenomenon where you tend to generate alpha relative to the S&P, right? Because to me, that's my baseline for inflation. And if you're underperforming the S&P, guys, you got to rethink your investment strategy. Not financial advice, of course, but just saying. So enter Bitcoin treasuries, this concept. Okay, let me read this definition. A Bitcoin treasury company is a business that holds Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset on its balance sheet, similar to how traditional companies might hold cash, bonds, or gold. Bitcoin treasury companies may issue Bitcoin-backed financial products or borrow and lend using Bitcoin as collateral. Okay, kind of a new-ish phenomenon. And what's funny is, like, if you're watching this video 10 years in the future, you're like, well, of course there's Bitcoin treasuries. If you're watching it as I record it in July of 2025, you're like, oh, Bitcoin treasuries, interesting. You know, like, I personally think we could be on the cusp of a big bubble that's essentially gonna inflate and be known as the Bitcoin treasury bubble. I could be wrong, of course, but I could also see the potential for that to be the case when you see how much room there is for Bitcoin to run. You know what I mean? People have not even begun to talk about Bitcoin yet. Even though if you exist in the echo chambers that I'm in, that many of you guys watching probably are, then you probably think like, oh man, we must be near the top soon. But yeah, I think we're just the sharp people that are ahead of the curve, honestly. I'm used to being early to things in life. Okay, Bitcoin treasuries. Speaking of them, these companies, again, have Bitcoin on their balance sheet. There is a website, bitcointreasuries.net, that keeps a running tally of how much Bitcoin different companies have on their balance sheets. Check out MicroStrategy there in number 1. They actually hold 607,000 Bitcoin. Absolutely staggering. Second place is Mara, a Bitcoin mining company. They hold a mere 50,000 Bitcoin. Now, compare that also to Trump Media, the sitting president of the United States. His DJT company, I believe, I don't want to say the wrong thing, so check me on this, but I believe it was like 2/3 of their treasury was invested in Bitcoin. They own 18,430 Bitcoin. So can you take a hint? You know what I mean? The company underneath there, MetaPlanet, they're like the Japanese market's equivalent of MicroStrategy. And I read an article just over the weekend talking about a company on the Brazilian stock market that was going to execute the MicroStrategy Bitcoin Treasury playbook. So again, depending on when you're watching this video, this may seem like a new phenomenon or a very old one. These things do tend to move pretty quickly. So I just wanted to make you guys aware of this website and also show you why I am way more bullish on MicroStrategy, because they have way more Bitcoin on their balance sheet than any other company. I'm pretty bullish on Mara too, if I'm being honest though. So moving on, Bitcoin miners, just for perspective, I'm trying to educate you a little bit on the whole ecosystem, but I am just barely scratching the surface. Bitcoin miners are the backbone of the Bitcoin network, right? The hash rate of the Bitcoin network is a derivative of the number of Bitcoin miners essentially mining Bitcoin on a day-to-day basis, where they're doing computations, and when they essentially solve the math problem, which is a little bit of chance, but there's also like hardware associated with it and how fast they can do these processes, these calculations, that increases the likelihood that they will mine the next block of Bitcoin. Well, over time, the amount of Bitcoin rewarded in the blocks that are mined is halved. It gets reduced. Currently, there's about 450, I guess I probably worded this incorrect, but currently, based on how Bitcoin's mined and averages, as of recording this July 2025, there's about 450 Bitcoin mined daily. So not 450 blocks, but 450 Bitcoin being mined daily. And again, that will continue to diminish over time until eventually, and I believe this is like over 100 years from now, but there will be no block rewards anymore. The miners will essentially just be collecting subsidies for facilitating transactions on the Bitcoin network when money's moved, when Bitcoin's moved. But currently, the subsidies are, they mine the blocks, the blocks yield Bitcoin for whoever wins the block. MicroStrategy, for reference though, is buying about 900 Bitcoin a day. They're buying as many as 900 Bitcoin a day. So if there's 450 new Bitcoin being put on the market daily from miners, and MicroStrategy is buying 900 a day, do that math real quick. Do you see another, I honestly don't even care about narratives, but that is another very strong reason to expect price appreciation. And if we just go back one slide, look at all the treasury companies here. Like, there is a mad dash to accumulate Bitcoin and execute this strategy here. Of course, MicroStrategy now named Strategy. So if I'm annoying anybody by not calling it the right name, from here on out, I will call it, like you can see on my shirt, I will call it Strategy. Okay. So MicroStrategy, oh no, I said it again. Right after that, I called it MicroStrategy. It's because the stock ticker is MSTR, okay? Forgive me. Strategy can be looked at as a Bitcoin proxy. You might be like, but Ryan, why don't we just buy Bitcoin? Honestly, whoever asked that question, I love you for asking. I would honestly say, like I said, buy Bitcoin first. That should be top priority. Open a free Coinbase account, dollar cost average into Bitcoin, and then if you dare to take that extra step, self-custody it. Like, I honestly, truly think that you are one of the sharpest people walking on planet Earth if you self-custody your Bitcoin, because so few people do it, even in 2025. But I think that's going to be on the incline. The number's going to go up soon. All right. The reason you might want to consider buying Strategy stock, though, is because of MNAV. Okay, it's a multiple on net asset value of what they hold. In this case, they hold Bitcoin, but Strategy tends to trade at a premium to the Bitcoin they hold. You might be like, but why is that? Why would somebody overvalue Strategy as a company relative to their Bitcoin when their essential, their value as a company is being derived from the Bitcoin on their balance sheet? Well, there's a reason for that, because you might not be able to get exposure to Bitcoin. Like, most people's investing money, the percentage of their net worth associated with investments might be in like a 401k or something like along those lines, like an IRA. Okay. In that case, how do you get exposure to Bitcoin? Well, there are ways. I mean, of course there's ways. Part of the evolution is that there's been creative ways to do it, but one simple way would just be to buy MSTR stock, because, well, Vanguard won't let you buy Bitcoin. And it's funny because Vanguard's one of like the last big institutions not allowing people to get direct exposure to Bitcoin. But if you look at the top institutional holders of MSTR stock, of Strategy stock, Vanguard holds like 33% more than number 2. You know what I mean? They're by far the largest holder of MSTR. So I just thought that was interesting. So it's like, everybody's getting their exposure one way or another. I've even heard that like countries were buying MSTR stock. That's a whole nother rabbit hole that you can go down. But a lot of institutions are literally getting their Bitcoin exposure through proxies like Strategy. Okay. Another reason to think it might go up. Also, since Strategy started instituting the Bitcoin treasury approach, even though back then we didn't really call it a Bitcoin treasury, I think that's more of a recent thing. Its stock has appreciated almost 4,000% bottom to top. So very impressive there. And again, I believe we have much higher to go. I think I have a slide. Where is it? Yeah, this next slide right here. They're currently the 163rd largest company by market cap, with a market cap of 117 billion that you can see down there. Another reason real quick to be bullish on MSTR, theoretically, not financial advice, shared by @MSTR21M on Twitter, they could potentially be included in the S&P 500. And I've heard really intelligent people in Twitter spaces say that might not even be a good thing because it might mute some of the MSTR stock volatility. You can make up your own mind, but traditionally at least, if it's announced that a company is going to be included in the S&P, there is a strong run-up to the time that they are officially inducted in, where, if you remember Tesla, like Tesla multiplied many times and became ultimately like $1 trillion market cap company, basically from when it was announced that they'd be included. Now, I'm not saying it's completely due to them being included in the S&P, but like the timing of it was very random if you don't believe it had something to do with it. We recently saw it with like Coinbase. Again, I'm not trying to attribute all of Coinbase's growth to it being included in the S&P, but it's just one of those things. And you can see it with a lot of companies that have been included into the S&P. So just a quick timeline here. Strategy is going to announce their second quarter earnings, and due to basically a change in accounting, I don't even know who's responsible for like allowing that change, but due to some change, my understanding is that now instead of having like negative earnings per share, they're going to have like 30 something dollars earnings per share, just like one of the biggest blowout earnings ever for any company. So they're going to announce earnings on the call July 31st. The S&P 500 ranking day is August 15th. The S&P 500 changes announcement is September 5th. And then the S&P 500 rebalance day is September 19th. And again, this is 2025 in case you're watching this video in the future. So I have two big charts to show you. If you're scared of technical analysis, I want to show you two charts. I actually have many more than two charts, but at a minimum, I want to invite you to stay with me for two charts that best illustrate why I'm so bullish on this thesis, why I could be doing anything right now with my time, but I'm here with you recording this long ass video, giving out this alpha for free. Okay. And speaking of it for free, I actually do have a paid community that you do not need to join. But if you're liking my content, my delivery, and you think I could serve you in any way, I am active every single day, 7 days a week in my MSTR generational wealth community, linked below, first link in the description, where we do things like share price targets, do video calls talking about potential entries and exits for options, for shares. We'll talk about our targets for when we think MSTR is topping, when we think Bitcoin's topping, talk about strategies associated with that. Do we sell and create a massive tax liability? Sell our shares? Do we sell our Bitcoin? Do we do other things like sell calls against the MSTR shares and then maybe roll those into puts and profit from price potentially going down? There's so many things to discuss. We have over 100 members, so things have been good so far. I just wanted to make it clear that this exists. And in case technical analysis is not your thing, I wanted to make it aware. It is the first link in the description. And now I'm going to pivot over to those charts. If you made it this far, thank you for joining me for the technical analysis portion of this video. We're going to start with Bitcoin on the linear chart. These are weekly bars. Okay, so each bar, green or red, represents 1 week. Let me show you how significant Bitcoin's recent price action has been. I'm going to connect the previous tops for Bitcoin going back to 2017, so 8 years ago, and then connect the bottom. I love when it lines up and creates a perfect channel. Now, when I do this, I call it my green chart, my green channel. It's meant to safely contain all of the recent price action and for as far back as it lines up. Now, the reason I did this is because I want to show you that Bitcoin, after 8 years in this channel, broke out in July of 2025 and is currently in the process of consolidating above the channel, which typically takes place before a continuation of the trend. So if you're watching this in the future, you already know we went higher, right? I'm assuming, at least, knock on wood. But this is significant. When you break out of a trend line that contained 8 years of price action, do I need to, even if technical analysis isn't your thing, you should understand the significance of that. Now, that's also on the back of me talking about earlier, the S&P broke out above a 96-year-old channel. Okay, so there is a strong signal, if you ask me, of something related to US dollars, denominating things in US dollars, essentially that the debasement, I don't know if there's something that happened in the past that's getting priced in today in real time, or if there's something coming in the future, but these charts tend to tell the stories. I don't worry about narratives. I look at the charts and then I'll let the narratives follow personally. But I wanted to show you this. And now I want to show you my favorite chart that literally tells the story, if you ask me. This chart is everything to me. This is Bitcoin on the log scale. So this was linear scale. This is log scale. On the log scale, the size of the moves as you get further up the scale become more and more significant. So for instance, like I highlight this massive move over here. That was Bitcoin running from $15 up to $270. But if I highlight just this tiny, tiny move right here, that represents Bitcoin going from 116,000 up to 164,000. So log scale is a little bit deceptive if you're not familiar with it. Anyways, thank you for following me to this chart. This is everything. Let me zoom in and show you why it's so significant, okay? These white lines that I put on this chart represent levels on Bitcoin's log chart. The history of Bitcoin, we have existed on 5 different levels, okay? This first level right here, or I guess you could say 6 if you wanted to count like from inception when it, basically was trading at like dollars per Bitcoin, like less than $10. But when you level jump, when you break above these overhead resistances, Bitcoin explodes. Price appreciates predictably faster at this time than it does at any other time. And it has been true for every level jump we've ever had. The reason I keep harping on this is because we just entered a new level. It's extremely significant. So in this case, back in January of 2013, price appreciated 1,630% in 11 weeks, okay? The next time we level jumped in Bitcoin was November of 2013, and price appreciated 323% in 4 weeks. The next level jump we had, Bitcoin ran, it depends on how you measure it because we did have a significant backtest from this level. But if you just measure it from the first candle that closed above, Bitcoin's price appreciated, and this is in 2017, by the way, 645% in 27 weeks. And in terms of using, leverage or stock options or anything like that, you could have honestly waited for the backtest and chopped off like, I think 7 weeks, and the whole price appreciation was in the span of 5 months. So absolutely insane. The next level jump that we had was in 2020. It started in November of 2020, and price ran 276% in 21 weeks. Are you guys noticing a pattern? It's not that Bitcoin's price isn't volatile. Of course it's volatile. There's some down days along the way on the way up. But the highest likelihood rapid price appreciation happens when it jumps levels on this log chart. Okay. Now, the longer that Bitcoin's been around, the more time it spends consolidating on these levels. Okay. For instance, the last level that started in 2020, we spent almost 5 years, just under 5 years, consolidating on this level, basically forming a massive cup and handle, or you could call it also a massive inverted head and shoulders, however you want to refer to it as, both extremely bullish structures. And I noticed this ahead of time, so I front ran this move personally. And if you've been subscribed, you know that. But we broke through. I mean, this is extremely, extremely significant. Okay, we broke through on this massive bar that came in the first week of July. That bar took us from Bitcoin 107,500 all the way to 119,500. So a massive bar. We're currently consolidating right around this level on the log scale. Again, consolidating above this level, perfectly fine with it. I think it's best honestly illustrated with the linear chart here, consolidating above this 8-year channel. But either way, right? We're consolidating on the linear chart above a channel that we were in for 8 years. We're consolidating on the log chart above a channel that we were in for 5 years. And I just showed you the significance of breaking through these levels on the log chart. When this thing starts moving, guys, if the past serves as a reference, it's going to be explosive. It's going to catch a lot of people off guard. And anybody who thinks the top is in, I mean, help me make sense of that call. If the top was in, we wouldn't have traded above this level. Like, just for reference, let me zoom out. We tested this level, I think 6 times before we broke through. We tested it right here at 64,000. Let's call it 65,000. We didn't get an exact test on these 2021 tops, but we fell short. But when Bitcoin topped at 67,200, that was basically short of a test, but basically a test. Again at 69,200, again up at 107,900. This is the same trend line, guys. Whoops. Again at 110,000. Again at 115,000 the first time we got, oh, actually we didn't get up to 115. We got down to 112, sorry. Don't want to say the wrong thing. And then ultimately we broke through on the 7th test. Okay, so again, they're not all clean tests, but if we fell just short of it, I would call it a test. On the 7th try, we got above when we broke through 116,500. Okay, and I believe the move that's waiting to play out is going to look something like this. I'm cloning a previous pattern here in Bitcoin. It's just my personal belief, if I have to kind of project, that we could do something similar to what we see right here, where we run up to this $165,000 level, most likely consolidate, in some sort of a wedge pattern or maybe a bull flag, or maybe they don't make it that easy on us. I don't know. Then we resume higher, potentially even exploding above these inverse parabolas. So if you're wondering what the red and orange lines are, they are parabolas, but they're inverted. They go back to the inception of Bitcoin. And then I'm just connecting tops from the tops of bull runs, okay? And those are helping me project the peaks of this bull run. Now, do I really think we exceed them? We don't have to. Suppose that we, and again, this is a log chart, guys. So if this looks like a small move, check the axis behind my head. It's actually very significant. Like if we run up here, that would be $235,000 Bitcoin, okay? And again, consolidating around this, $165,000, $170,000 target to me would make a lot of sense as well. The reason why I don't have an exact price target for you, though, is because it's moving with time. Like it's a curved line. So depending on when you get there, the actual price target's going to change. The same way that even the non-curved linear line here representing this log scale level, depending on when you get to it, the price of Bitcoin essentially changes. So that is the core thesis for why I'm excited to share this video with you, why I think it's highly logical to have some exposure to Bitcoin as an asset class, whether it's through owning Bitcoin or through a proxy like strategy. Now I would like to just show you a couple more charts if you're still with me. I mean, I guess most people now, I'm just going to assume if you're with me till the end. So thank you. This is the total market cap for crypto. And if I'm looking at it on a linear chart and I'm essentially connecting the bottoms and then just extending these channels upwards, you can see that again, we are consolidating above this 8-year channel. Okay. We're attempting to close and consolidate and explode above that 8-year channel. It's actually, I did a double channel just so I had more references within it. But this is a significant move, guys. And it's a little bit more clear, I think, on the log chart for the total crypto market cap. So look at this. Now, I don't trust the normal TA patterns as much on the log charts personally. That being said, though, it is what it is, right? TA is what it is. Look how clean this is in the total crypto market cap chart. So we had this previous high from November 2021. If you put a horizontal line, I love TradingView, by the way. I'll also put my TradingView link in case you want to mess around with these charts. Again, it's just an easy way of saying thank you for me putting out this video and supporting the channel through using the affiliate link if you want to sign up. And you can create a free account, by the way. But it's like we got above. Look how crazy this is, by the way, by the market maker algorithms. You get above, breakout. Psych is a fake out. You drop all the way down, even outside this massive macro channel, multi-year channel. But that was actually a fake out because then you resume the uptrend. Oops, just kidding. Nope, you backtest one last time, the channel support. And now it's just off to the races. You can see I labeled it on this chart. By the way, if you want to follow me on Twitter, sometimes I'll put out tweets like this, TA. But I just put a rocket emoji because what more needs to be said? Breakout, fake out, backtest, you're gone. You know what I mean? This is what we can expect. I think we could go as high as, 14 trillion seems aggressive, but we could certainly see the entire crypto ecosystem market cap it could go as high as 14. I mean, it's supported in the chart. It all depends on when it tops. Like this screenshot right here is February of 2026. So it all depends on timing. It depends on a lot of factors, but the technicals support it going as high as 14 trillion, which is more than 3x. It's like a 3.5x from where we're at currently as of me recording this video. Actually, no, my math is wrong. I was doing that based on 4 trillion. It's at 3.82. So I just think there's room for the upside, guys. The next chart here is USDT dominance. USDT is Tether. It is a stable coin. This is a whole nother rabbit hole, guys, but a rudimentary definition might be that like stable coins are almost like tokenized dollars that you can spend in the crypto ecosystem. It's a lot easier to spend these stable coins than it is to spend US dollars through an exchange like Coinbase, honestly, when you're making regular crypto purchases in the crypto ecosystem is how I would describe it. But it's kind of cool. It's like money magic. You know how we had the predatory central bankers of old, over a century ago? Well, in my mind, these are like the modern day central bankers, which I'm not for central banks, but I'm laughing because it's like, it's true money magic. You essentially, let's say I have like $1 million cash and I can give it to Tether and transmute it into tethers, right? And I can go spend $1 million worth of Tether on, Bitcoin or whatever. But Tether now has $1 million. So we've doubled the money now, and they're going to take my million and they're going to go spend it on assets like Bitcoin and like US treasuries. You see what we did there? We essentially doubled the money. Now, if I add Bitcoin to this chart represented by the pink line, what you notice is that there tends to be an inverse relationship between Bitcoin and USDT dominance. The reason I share that is because if I hide that line now, look at the red line on this chart. That was a very strong support that we broke below with Tether dominance once here, but it recovered. Again here, but it recovered. And again here, it tried to recover and it broke down. And now I think we go significantly lower, implying Bitcoin has got a massive move ahead of it. Okay, so I would say this chart supports that thesis. And there's a whole bunch of other charts, but I want to pivot to strategy now and look specifically at how MSTR stock is correlated to Bitcoin and what kind of opportunities presented there. So I've got a fresh chart of MSTR here. And first I want to do something for education. Let me just show you how the stock has experienced explosive growth and seen a changing of its expansion angles as a function of becoming a Bitcoin treasury. So if I hide the more recent price action off of my screen and we just look at this span of time from basically 2020 to 2024, you'll notice that MSTR's price is contained in a channel that looks like this. Okay, that channel is responsible for price action going back basically all the way to 2017 through 2024. But notice they implement the Bitcoin treasury strategy. Next thing you know, price explodes higher. It explodes out of that channel. And what do you know? A nice clean, almost back test. It wasn't even actually allowed to back test the top of the channel. But again, these things, people were so bearish down here. Just for perspective, guys, everybody hated MicroStrategy down here. And boom, we're resuming the uptrend again. Okay, this is all in my opinion, not financial advice, should be viewed for what it is. You know what I mean? In a bullish context, because it's not a bearish chart. If it's bearish, show me how. It tells me we're going significantly higher. And if you guys weren't aware, you can do things like use a Fibonacci retracement tool, connect the most recent top to the most recent bottom. And these essentially, like I have them color coded, they serve as magnets for price action, but it gets especially useful when you get into price discovery mode. So it's telling us that after we break the previous all-time high, which it didn't close at all-time high, by the way, that was just a massive gap up day. That day was insane for MicroStrategy of around $542 a share. When we take out that top, we can expect price discovery to take us to the 1.618 Fibonacci of about $737 per share MSTR. Above that, $1,050 a share. Above that, $1,362. And then above that, 1,555.5. Just saying, there's a lot of ways to like technical analysis, and there's much more nuance to it than what I'm sharing here, but just at a high level, there's some pretty cool things we can do so that we're not blindsided by these moves. But I also wanted to show you that like as equities mature through implementing new things, like actually doing new things with their business that generate money or just becoming a Bitcoin treasury, you change the trajectory of the company. So from that being their expansion angle, now a more reasonable representation would be this. I'm going to connect the tops here. And this is typically how I do my green charts. Boom. And now this channel contains MSTR's expansion. But you should be asking, Ryan, what about a future expansion angle? Can we project one? Yes, thank you for asking. This is where I bring up my red chart, which currently I have some parabola structures on it, and we'll come back to those and why they're so relevant. But let's ignore the parabolas just for a second, and let me show you the new expansion angle for MSTR's stock. Okay, I'm going to connect the bottoms instead of the tops. So I'm going to go down to the April 2025 bottom, connect it to, looks like that was in June, and then also connected to today's price action from July. And then I'm going to extend that up to the 2024 top. Boom. And now we have a brand new channel. And I call this my red chart. So I'm going to make it a red channel. Look at where we are. All right. As long as this channel support holds and parabola support, they're literally intersecting here. So if there was ever a time to enter MSTR, it's probably here, but that's not financial advice. I'm just saying theoretically, okay? We are in this pocket that we've been in before. I'll show you the previous patterns. Right before, price tends to explode higher, okay? So I actually wanted to, I have these horizontal lines, if you guys don't mind. And again, this is all kind of predicated on that these channel supports hold, okay? And I didn't even draw this channel perfectly. It looks like it, okay, there we go. I didn't want to show a candle wick below it because there shouldn't be one. As long as we stay in this red channel, we're good, you know? And we've been here before. I have this horizontal line drawn that's kind of hidden, but I'm going to make it white. Check out this horizontal white line. It actually shows, if you count prior to, you know, June, July of 2025, really July of 2025, prior to that, we had only had 6 daily closes above $413 a share. A lot of things get distorted though by this massive candle right here. Whoops, where's my highlighter? It's easier to see. By this massive candle we had in the previous blow off top in November of 2024. A lot of things get distorted. The reality is MSTR has spent most of its time consolidating well below in the 300s, okay? And it's new to MicroStrategy to be in the 400s. The thing is, every equity moves differently, by the way, but MSTR, if you study it like I have, when it gets into price discovery mode, it tends to put in significant rallies and euphoric blow off tops, where if you remember back earlier in this video, we talked about the MNAV concept. Well, the multiple that investors put on MSTR's, you know, underlying Bitcoin holdings goes higher and higher, right? In theory, it should just be one. Like MSTR owns one Bitcoin, we'll price it accordingly. But instead, like if it owned one Bitcoin, you would price it as if it held one Bitcoin. But what tends to happen is you do it at a premium. You might put a 2x multiple, so that would be an MNAV of 2 on their Bitcoin holdings, and value it at double. You know, you might, and for the reasons I shared earlier about like maybe you just have, you know, money in a 401k and you want exposure to Bitcoin, but you can't buy Bitcoin, theoretically, right? There could be other reasons too. People scared of owning Bitcoin, people scared of self-custodying it, whatever it is. You know, traditional finance is what it is. It's traditional, right? We got to break away from it at some point, but you tend to see MNAVs get significantly higher. In the past, they've gone as high as 4. Now, there's also some newer things that are happening where, you know, MicroStrategy can dilute, they can sell more of their common stock shares to raise money to buy more Bitcoin. And that has been happening recently. If it will continue to happen during this next rally, I mean, that is yet to be seen, something you should be aware of. But I also like to let the chart tell me the story and not just get caught up in narratives, because that literally happens. I'm going to show you these patterns, guys. Stick with me, okay? You see how we have that horizontal white line though? That significant line. I'll even make it like 4 pixels so it's easier to see. Nesting or consolidating above it is not necessarily a bad thing. You know, you saw that we got above it back here, but we couldn't really establish a base. So then we came back down and had a little bit of a distribution pattern there, broke back above it. Now we're back testing it. We actually wicked below it and tested this red channel support, which to me is completely fine. I think the path is clear to go significantly higher now, as soon as tomorrow, but certainly this week. And again, is this something new? No, MSTR moves in patterns, guys. Let me show you. This is the previous parabolic move that ultimately, you know, I haven't even told you how much this stuff has run, but like bottom to top, this move ran 350% in 54 days, in 2 months, guys. I mean, that's absolutely insane. If you don't think there was pain along the way, yes, there was. There were red days as well as green days along the way. But look at this structure here. Does it look similar? Yeah, that's because it is. I mean, literally, if I zoom in right here, right, do you see? This is literally what we're living through. This candle wick was what happened today as I record this. And if you're watching this in the future, you already know what happens next. I don't as of me recording this, but all I'm doing is studying the charts, studying previous patterns, and seeing the repetition. And it makes perfect sense too. Even if you don't understand technical analysis, doesn't it make sense that like you need to base above these significant levels? But instead what ends up happening is you get to these levels through the euphoric tops, you consolidate beneath, you distribute beneath, and then what ultimately ends up happening is you build up this energy. Well, first you try to shake the weak hands out right before you get the energy to do a big euphoric move. Okay, and I think that's exactly where we're at right now as I record this. Now we actually have another one of these moves, okay? MSTR tends to move in threes, so I'm gonna do one last time, okay? Same pattern, just on a smaller scale, okay? And you see, same thing. You had a run up, you had to distribute below, you break out, oops, just kidding, fake out, back test it, wick below it. You see this candle right here. It's probably hard to see, but you wick below it, knock people out. Boom, above, back test one more time, off to the races for another massive gain, guys. This is nothing new for MSTR. If you study the charts, there's no need to take me at my word. These charts, this data is available to everybody. Jump into TradingView, check it out for yourself. I know this video is running long. I've only got 2 more charts to show you. I could actually have a lot more charts than that, but for the purpose of this video, I think we've talked enough about it. You're not going to want to miss the last chart though, because it has a clearly defined definition for a breakout for MSTR stock. I want to show you those levels and why they're so reliable. But just like how we looked at these parabola moves and I showed how they're repeating, well, check this out. This is 2020 MSTR. MSTR moves in thirds, but in 2020, these are daily candles. And you can see that we could essentially break this move up into 1, back down, consolidate 2, back down, consolidate 3. Okay, it moves in 1, 2s, and 3s. Those are daily bars. If I switch the time frame now to weekly, look at what's happening right now, starting in 2024. It's moving again in thirds with a very similar pattern, except at a 5 times larger scale. So before we were looking at daily, now we're looking at weekly, and in a trading week, there's, for a traditional equity like MicroStrategy, there's only 5 days in the trading week. So I wanted to be clear. You can see that we've completed the first move, run up, consolidate. Then move number 2, boom, run up, consolidate. Guess what? Move number 3 tends to be the biggest. And we only just recently, 2 weeks ago, broke out, or you could say 4 weeks ago, I guess, if you wanted to, because we wicked above it. But the real clean backtest happened the second week of July. Well, I guess it's the first week technically of July. Okay. And now we're just kind of consolidating above, waiting for Bitcoin to resume its uptrend. If you guys remember that first Bitcoin chart I showed you on the linear scale where we broke above the 8-year channel, we're consolidating, processing the move, and then resuming higher is my guess. Again, not financial advice. Now I have one more chart for you. I have many more charts. You might want to consider my membership if you're liking what you're seeing so far, or if you just want a daily summary for me to basically give you my thoughts on the positions, which could also include starting new positions like entering, options, long or short. Just saying, that's all included in that membership. Here's the last chart for MSTR. This is the log scale chart for MSTR. If I compare this to the log scale chart for Bitcoin, okay, that I really love, it's kind of the opposite. Bitcoin was contained by the inverse parabolas, whereas MSTR is the only chart I know that has on the log scale a parabolic structure containing price action. Going parabolic on the exponential log scale is absolutely insane, and it implies that we could go significantly higher than most people expect in this next move, okay? Like I'm talking, $2,000 a share, $3,000 a share. We really don't know. And of course, there are market mechanics at play. There's other dynamics like dilution of the common shares. And when they choose to do that, again, another rabbit hole you can go down here. I recommend the irresponsibly long MSTR community on Twitter. I'm sure some people from that community are watching this video, but I just want to show you guys that we have these same slanted white lines similar to Bitcoin on the log scale, where you take the same line, you just duplicate them and then start connecting tops or bottoms. It works on the MSTR log scale. Check this out. Back in 2020, we had a clearly defined breakout by that line. If you got in on the breakout, these are weekly bars, but MSTR ran up 923% in 26 weeks. Generational wealth potential right there. If you were on top of it again right here for the next breakout, which by the way, I should say, this massive run up that we just talked about in 2020, 923% in 26 weeks perfectly coincided with, well, not perfectly, but like it coincided with the Bitcoin breakout on the log scale, okay? The reason I share that is because these next two breakouts on MSTR, they did not coincide with a Bitcoin breakout, okay? And that doesn't mean that Bitcoin can't run up and appreciate, which then, trickles down to MSTR stock as a proxy. But it's just worth noting that like you saw the power behind Bitcoin log chart level jumping, a true breakout. And that's what led to the last time it happened, MSTR going up 900%. Just saying it's not unprecedented for that to happen again. Okay, it is not. And that would bring MSTR up to like a $1 trillion market cap essentially. And I think it gets there one day, I don't know when, but it could be this cycle. It really could. So the next MSTR breakout was October 2023. If you measure bottom to top and you timed your entry with that breakout, in 22 weeks, price ran 444%. So whether you have shares or call options or something else, you trade on margin, whatever, you killed it. The next breakout, again, clearly defined here on the log chart with the same lines. It broke out September 2024. In 8 weeks, it ran 241%. Absolutely massive. And we got another clean breakout here. It happened in July, the first week of July. And so far through 3 weeks, bottom to top, we've ran 15.7%, but currently price is trading down and is only up 3% from the breakout, which is why I personally think, not financial advice, but as I record this, it represents a great opportunity. Of course, this thesis could be invalidated by the price action, but currently I see it lined up against supports, and it is begging people to take advantage of this entry because we just studied what happens next, or at least what happened next in the past. And if you think you're the sharpest guy in the room telling me this time's going to be different, good luck. You know what I mean? We literally can look back. It's not even that long ago, right here, literally the exact same structure, the exact same pattern, just on a smaller scale. Boom, right here, the breakout after that. Same exact price action, boom. One last scoop, wick below, resume uptrend, okay? And then here we are again, one last time, scoop above, wick below. It honestly reminds me of the crypto total market cap chart that I was showing you just a second ago. So anyways, guys, do with this information what you will. As I'm sure you can imagine, it's getting late here and I'm tired of talking. I'm sure you're probably tired of hearing me talk. So I just want to invite you to subscribe to the channel, like the video, bookmark it, send it to a friend, perhaps revisit it in the future. Okay, if you want to challenge this thesis or just see how it worked out if you're not ready to invest. Again, not financial advice, by the way. Okay, and I should have probably disclosed, like, yes, I own Bitcoin and I own MSTR shares. Oops, does it count if I do it at the end of the video? Hopefully it does. And last, guys, I just wanted to invite you to check out my MSTR generational wealth community. Our goal is simple. We want to create generational wealth by owning MSTR shares. We do weekly live calls, daily videos, or at least market updates where I share my thoughts, talk about entries and exits, including I have a 30-minute video defining the perfect entry for options. And that's about it, guys. Thank you for watching till the end. If you're irresponsibly long MSTR like I am, how much would it be worth to you to have somebody who's in the charts daily looking for the perfect entry for shares and options and eventually looking to see if we might have topped and it's time to take profits? If this is something that interests you, I want to invite you to check out my MSTR generational wealth community linked below.